Before this story begins, tell me in the comments, have you ever been publicly humiliated only to turn the tables in a way no one saw coming? I'm Isabella, 56 years old, and I've been called many things in my life: generous, stubborn, even too forgiving. But on that particular evening, in front of 300 people, someone tried to strip me of my dignity. What they didn't know was that I've learned to turn humiliation into my greatest weapon. The chandeliers sparkled above the grand ballroom, casting its golden glow across the crystal glasses and satin-covered tables. This was not just any event, it was the charity gala I had poured my heart, soul, and money into for the past 6 months. Everything from the flower arrangements to the live orchestra had been carefully planned to raise funds for underprivileged children. I was the chairwoman of the organizing committee, and every guest knew it. Or so I thought. When the evening began, I moved between tables, greeting donors and thanking them for their generosity. I felt proud until I reached the podium for my welcome speech. That's when it happened. A man in a tailored navy suit, Elliot Bennett, one of our so-called VIP donors, interrupted my opening remarks. He took the microphone from my hand and with a smirk said, "Before we continue, let's give a round of applause to our lovely hostess, Isabella, who's clearly enjoying her moment under the spotlight." The crowd chuckled politely, unsure where this was going, but Elliot wasn't done. "You know, it's impressive how she's managed to dress up for the occasion. Some of us were worried she might still be wearing last season's collection." The laughter this time was sharper. A few guests glanced at my gown, a simple but elegant emerald dress I had chosen for its comfort, not its label. My face burned, but I kept my expression calm. Years in business had taught me that silence could be louder than any words. What Elliot didn't know was that I was holding the ultimate card. As he stepped away from the microphone, still smirking, I calmly walked back up and took it from him. "Thank you for your colorful commentary, Mr. Bennett." I smiled so sweetly it made his grin falter. "Since you've brought attention to fashion tonight, I suppose now is the perfect time to announce something we were saving for later. Every piece of decor, every plate of food, every single detail of tonight's gala has been sponsored anonymously by me. And every cent raised tonight will be matched by my personal contribution." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elliot's smugness melted into panic. I could see him mentally calculating the fact that his VIP donor status had just been outshined. "And one more thing," I added, locking eyes with him. "Those who try to belittle others often reveal more about themselves than the person they target. Let's remember why we're here, to lift others up, not tear them down." The applause that followed was deafening. Elliot slunk back to his seat, his face pale. Every pair of eyes in that grand ballroom seemed to lock onto me. My cheeks burned, not from shame, but from a surge of defiance bubbling up inside. I straightened my back, adjusted the silk shawl around my shoulders, and looked directly at the man who thought he'd just crushed me in front of everyone. The microphone in his hand made a small pop as he leaned toward it, smirking. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said loudly, "I think it's clear some people here are out of their league." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Somewhere near the back, I heard stifled laughter. My stomach twisted. I knew exactly what this was. This was his moment, his petty revenge for something I hadn't even done. I glanced at the giant projection screen behind him. That's when I saw it. He'd put up a photo from 10 years ago. Me, working double shifts at the diner, hair tied back in a messy bun, holding a tray of coffee mugs. The caption, "Rags to riches," or "Back to rags." Before we go any further, what would you do if someone tried to humiliate you like this in front of hundreds of people? Would you walk out, confront them, or turn the tables completely? Drop your answer in the comments before you find out what I did next. I didn't flinch. Instead, I let a slow smile spread across my face. I said, calmly, my voice steady enough to cut through the whispers, You're right. That is me. And you know what? That photo represents the hardest, most determined years of my life. Years that built the business you're so proud to be standing in right now. In fact, if it weren't for that woman in that photo, half of you wouldn't even have jobs. And as for you, I turned to him, locking eyes, you wouldn't even be invited to this event if I hadn't given you your first big break. That's when I pulled out a small gold-embossed envelope from my clutch. Gasps again. Some guests recognized it instantly. It was the founder's share certificate. I held it up so everyone could see. You think you're humiliating me? No, I'm here to remind you that without me, there is no company, no guests, no ballroom. And then, with the entire room watching, I began walking toward the stage, certificate in hand. I reached the stage, every step echoing louder than the music that had stopped moments ago. The man holding the microphone, so smug seconds earlier, now looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I took the mic from his hand without asking. You wanted to remind everyone where I came from, but you forgot something. This certificate gives me full veto power over every major decision in this company. The crowd broke into a low murmur. Someone near the front audibly whispered, "Wait, she's still an owner?" I nodded. "Oh, yes." Which means, I turned toward the event manager standing off to the side, "We're making one immediate change tonight. This gala, from this moment forward, isn't a networking event for investors. It's a fundraiser for the employees who built this company from the ground up." The guests gasped. A few clapped. And then, as if on cue, the waitstaff, most of whom I knew by name, started smiling. I walked past my would-be humbler, brushing his shoulder as I went. "And as for you," I added, trying to make sure he heard it over the noise, "your access card will stop working by midnight. Security will escort you out when we're done here." The room erupted. Half the crowd stood, applauding, cheering, even whistling. The other half looked around in stunned silence, unsure if they should side with me or keep quiet. I leaned into the mic one last time. Here's the truth. Your past doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous to people who underestimate you. Remember that. As I left the stage, guests swarmed me with congratulations. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You made a powerful enemy tonight, but also an important ally. Call me." And just like that, the night wasn't over. I stepped out into the cool night air, the chatter of the guests fading behind me. My phone buzzed again. Same number. "You really don't know who I am, do you?" I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I slipped into the back of my car, shutting the door like I was sealing away the chaos of the evening. The driver turned slightly. "Where to, Miss Lane?" I said, "Just drive." My eyes fixed on the glowing screen. Another message came through. "Meet me at the Rosemont Hotel lobby. 10 minutes. I should have ignored it. After all, I'd just publicly humiliated a man who was known for holding grudges. This could easily be a trap. But something in my gut told me this was different. An opportunity, not a threat. At the Rosemont, I walked in to find a tall woman in a tailored cream pantsuit leaning casually against the bar. Her eyes found mine instantly, as if she'd been watching the door. She said, "You don't know me, but I've been following your career since the day you joined Brantford Corp." My chest tightened. "And you are?" She smiled faintly. "Let's just say that I've been waiting for the right person to take him down. Tonight you proved you're that person." I narrowed my eyes. "You mean him? The man who tried to humiliate me?" She nodded. "He's not just arrogant. He's dangerous. And he's planning something that will hurt a lot more people than you." I stared at her, the weight of her words settling in. "What exactly are you offering?" I asked. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "A partnership. You help me take him down for good, and I'll make sure you end up with more power than you ever imagined." For the first time all night, my pulse quickened, not from anger, but from possibility. The woman's voice was calm, but her eyes told another story, sharp, urgent, and a little dangerous. I know you've been wrong tonight, but what he's about to do will make this little stunt seem like a joke. I crossed my arms. Then tell me. She glanced around the quiet hotel bar before sliding a slim leather folder across the table. I opened it, expecting some vague gossip. Instead, I found blueprints, signed contracts, and a series of confidential emails. His emails. This, she said, tapping the documents, is proof he's been funneling money from Brantford Corp into a shell company overseas. In 2 weeks, he'll vanish with over $50 million, leaving hundreds of employees without a paycheck. My stomach tightened. I remembered the interns I'd mentored, the night shift workers who depended on every dollar, the single parents who told me this job was their lifeline. "And you've had this for how long?" I asked. "Long enough to know I can't do it alone," she said. "I need someone inside, someone he doesn't see coming. Tonight proved you can handle him." I closed the folder slowly. "And what do I get in return?" Her smile returned, sharper this time. "The position he's been trying to keep you from. His office, his title, his power. You'd be untouchable." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. This was no longer about payback. It was about taking control of a game I hadn't even known I was playing. She extended her hand. "So, Ms. Lane, do we have a deal?" I looked at her hand for a long moment. The air between us was thick with possibility and risk. Her hand hovered between us, steady and certain. I took it. The shake was firm, too firm for a casual agreement. "Good," she said, pulling back. "We start tomorrow." That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed every smug smirk, every backhanded comment he'd ever made to me. But now, I had leverage, and leverage changes everything. The next morning, I walked into the Brantford building like I owned it. People noticed. Heads turned. Whispers followed. He was already in his glass office, sipping coffee like the night before had been nothing. I didn't knock. I walked right in. His brow furrowed. "What do you want?" I set the leather folder on his desk. He didn't need to open it. He recognized it immediately. A flicker of panic passed through his eyes, quickly smothered by a laugh. "You think you know how to play this game?" he said. I leaned in, my voice low. "I don't think, Jonathan. I know." I turned to leave, letting the silence stretch until it felt suffocating. At the door, I looked back. "You'll make your speech tonight at the gala, just like always. Only this time, I'll be the one holding the microphone when it's over." His knuckles whitened around the coffee cup. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. By the time evening came, the ballroom glittered under golden chandeliers. 300 guests, every major investor, every camera in the city. I stood in the wings, waiting for his moment to shine, so I could burn the whole stage down. The music swelled as Jonathan took the stage, his smile polished and empty. Cameras flashed, champagne glasses clinked. Every eye was fixed on him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice smooth as silk, "thank you for joining us on this extraordinary evening." I waited in the wings, the microphone in my hand feeling heavier with each second. My pulse was steady, though, too steady for the storm that was about to hit. He went on about vision and leadership and our family values. Every word was another thread in the golden curtain he'd wrapped himself around, and I was about to tear it down. Just as the applause started, I stepped onto the stage. He froze mid-clap. The spotlight swung, bathing me in white light. My gown shimmered like I'd planned this moment my whole life. "Thank you, Jonathan," I said, taking the microphone from his hand. You've always been such a gracious host." A ripple of murmurs rolled through the crowd. Jonathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. "I was told tonight was about celebrating our success, but sometimes success hides secrets, and I think it's time we let some light in." Gasps, whispers. I let them build. I wanted the tension to thicken until you could taste it. I turned to face him, my smile razor sharp. "Jonathan, remember that folder I brought you this morning?" His Adam's apple bobbed. He didn't answer. I held it up for everyone to see. "Inside this are truths you've worked very hard to bury." The camera zoomed in. The guests leaned forward. The room was seconds from implosion. And then I opened it. I pulled the first sheet from the folder, holding it up so the guests in the front row could see the company letterhead. "This," I said, "is an internal memo sent by Jonathan himself." He took a step forward, hand half raised. "That's confidential." "Confidential?" I interrupted. "Jonathan, it's funny how things become confidential only when they're inconvenient." A ripple of shocked laughter moved through the crowd. I laid the paper flat on the podium. "In this memo, Jonathan approved transferring $500,000 from the charity fund to cover personal expenses." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, and one or two sharp intakes of breath from the board member sitting at the head table. Jonathan's face was a mask of controlled panic. He said, "A misinterpretation." I cut him off again. "Oh, I'm sure you have an explanation. Maybe you'll get to share it if you still have a position tomorrow." The crowd buzzed louder now, some guests already pulling out their phones, snapping photos and filming. The story was halfway out the door before he could even react. I let the moment breathe, then leaned in closer to the mic. "This is just the first page. The rest is far more interesting." Jonathan's smile cracked, his hands clenched at his sides. But I didn't turn the page. Not yet. I slid the folder shut. "No," I said slowly, "you'll all have to wait for that part. Timing is everything." The suspense thickened like fog. The guests were hooked, desperate to know what came next. And Jonathan? He was sweating under the spotlight, exactly where I wanted him. I stepped back from the podium, tucking the folder under my arm like it was nothing more than a stack of harmless notes. The truth was, it was a loaded weapon, and every single person in that ballroom knew it. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," I said with a small smile, my voice dripping with polite dismissal. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He reached toward me, but I was already moving. Slow, deliberate steps down the stage stairs. The crowd parted for me as though I were royalty walking through her court. Eyes followed me, whispers chased me, but not one person dared to block my path. Near the exit, a woman in a sapphire gown leaned in. "That was brilliant, but I get the feeling you're not done yet." I smiled. "You're right. Tonight was just the appetizer." The ballroom doors closed behind me, muffling the chaos inside. My driver was waiting, engine idling. I slid into the back seat, the folder resting on my lap like a secret weapon I hadn't fired yet. "Home?" the driver asked. "Not yet," I said. "We have a stop to make." The real hit, the one that would end him, was still ahead of us.